The rain had been falling since dawn, turning the city into a shimmering blur of lights and ripples. The streets were slick, dotted with puddles that reflected the dim glow of shop signs. Most people hurried along with umbrellas, their heads bent low, eager to escape the wet chill. Ayaan had no umbrella. He walked without caring that the rain was soaking his shirt, that his shoes squelched with every step. His mind was a storm far heavier than the one pouring from the sky. At 28, he felt as if life had wrung him out and left him empty. The last few months had been brutal, losing his job, the constant rejections from companies that didn't even bother to respond, the bills piling up like an accusation on his table. His friends had drifted away one by one, their cheerful social media posts a reminder of how far behind he had fallen. The rain blurred his vision, but it wasn't only the water. Somewhere inside, a quiet voice kept whispering that maybe it didn't matter anymore, that maybe his life was just stuck. He reached a crowded bus stop, though he had nowhere in particular to go. People huddled close together, their umbrellas forming a wall of nylon domes. He stood apart, watching the streams of water drip from a tin awning. And then it happened. His old wallet, frayed at the edges and barely held together, slipped from his damp fingers. He didn't even notice. He was too lost in his thoughts. A deep, warm voice cut through the hiss of rain. "Excuse me, I think you dropped this." Ayaan turned. A man in his early 60s was holding out his wallet. The man was tall, with kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled. His coat was worn but clean, his umbrella tilted to shield them both. "You should keep this close, my friend," the man said, pressing it gently into Ayaan's hand. "Thank you," Ayaan muttered, embarrassed. The man studied him for a moment, not in a judging way, but as if he could see past the wet hair plastered to Ayaan's forehead, past the weary slouch in his shoulders. "You look like you could use a hot drink," the man said finally. "Oh, there's a tea stall just around the corner. My treat." Ayaan hesitated. He didn't know this man, but there was something in his tone, steady, unhurried, that made it hard to refuse. The tea stall was small, the kind tucked between buildings where the air smelled of cardamom and wood smoke. The plastic chairs wobbled slightly, and the counter was stacked with jars of biscuits. The man introduced himself as Kareem. "I come here every evening," Kareem said, nodding to the vendor. "The tea here is honest." Ayaan wasn't sure what honest tea meant, but the warmth of the cup between his hands was a relief after the cold rain. They spoke at first about nothing important: the weather, the traffic, the way the rain seemed to change people's moods. But slowly, Kareem began to ask gentle questions. Where was Ayaan from? What did he do for work? Ayaan gave short answers at first, but Kareem didn't rush him. It was strange. Most people wanted to talk about themselves, but Kareem listened, really listened. And in that quiet, something in Ayaan began to loosen. Kareem leaned back in his chair and smiled faintly. "You know, I've been where you are," he said. He told Ayaan about the time, 20 years ago, when he had lost everything in a failed business. His friends had disappeared. His confidence had crumbled. "I thought my life was over," Kareem said, "but it turns out sometimes losing everything is the start of seeing what really matters." Kareem spoke of starting over, not with money, but with small acts. Helping at a community kitchen, fixing old bicycles for neighborhood kids. "I learned that no one is too poor to give, and no one is too broken to start again." Ayaan felt the words settle into him like seeds falling into soil. When the tea was finished, Kareem paid for both without a second thought. As they stepped back into the rain, Kareem pressed a folded slip of paper into Ayaan's hand. "Read this when you feel ready," he said. His eyes crinkled in that same kind smile, and then he was gone, walking into the misty street until his figure blurred away. That night, Ayaan sat on the edge of his bed. The room was dim, the only light coming from the street lamp outside his window. He unfolded the note. Inside, written in neat handwriting, was a single sentence. Every storm runs out of rain. Don't stop walking. Beneath it was a phone number and 3 words. If you need, Ayaan didn't call. Not yet. But he kept the note in his wallet. And somehow, knowing it was there made him feel less alone. Days passed. Ayaan began to notice small shifts in himself. He started waking up earlier. He sent out job applications with a little more care. One evening, he found himself dialing Kareem's number. Kareem answered warmly, as if expecting the call. Over the weeks that followed, Kareem became a quiet mentor, giving tips on interviews, encouraging Ayaan to volunteer somewhere, reminding him that progress was rarely instant. "You plant seeds," Kareem said once, "and trust that they will grow." Following Kareem's advice, Ayaan began volunteering at a local shelter. At first, it was just serving meals. But slowly, he started talking with the people there, hearing their stories. It humbled him. It gave him perspective. Within months, he landed a job, not his dream job, but a stable one. He began saving again, paying off debts, even smiling more often. One rainy day, a year later, Ayaan stood at the same bus stop where he had first met Kareem. He saw a young man, drenched, staring at the ground with the same lost look he once carried. Ayaan stepped forward. "You look like you could use a warm drink," he said, holding out an umbrella. The young man smiled faintly, following him to the tea stall. Ayaan didn't tell him everything, but he listened, really listened, just as Kareem had done for him. As they parted, Ayaan slipped a folded note into the man's hand. Inside, it read, "Every storm runs out of rain. Don't stop walking." And in that moment, Ayaan understood. Kindness was not a single act. It was a chain reaction, passed from one heart to another, lighting the dark, one spark at a time. You may never know the full impact of your kindness. But somewhere, someone will remember you as the stranger who changed their life forever.